The last of the post-impressionists that we're going to be talking about in the course is Vincent van Gogh. Van Gogh's an interesting character, interesting personality, interesting biography. Van Gogh is a Dutch artist, and so one thing that means is that his name certainly isn't pronounced Vincent van Gogh. Dutch is an odd little language in a lot of different ways, and there's at least two different ways of pronouncing Dutch, even within a nation as small as the Netherlands. Americans tend to call him Vincent van Gogh. The British tend to call him Van Hoff, or Van Ho. The Europeans call him Van Gogh or Van Hock. Doesn't really matter. None of it's close to how Vincent van Gogh would have pronounced his own name. I'm not even sure it's clear how he would have done it. But an interesting character. Van Gogh, as a young man, experiences what he would identify as a call to pastoral ministry. He wants to be a minister. He goes off to seminary. He doesn't do very well academically. He flunks out of seminary, but he eventually is given a job as a pastor in a small working-class community in an inner-city area in the Dutch Reformed Church, the state church of the Netherlands. He shows up with a lot of energy and enthusiasm and excitement, a lot of radical ideas. He thinks if he can just get these ideas into society, that he'll make life better for these poor people that he's working with. None of these ideas really work. They are pretty radical ideas. They don't work. He becomes very depressed. He feels that he's failed at what he set out to do. And well, he has. I mean, any honest appraisal would be that he has failed at what he set out to do. But instead of accepting his failure, dealing with it, and then moving on, he sinks deeper and deeper into depression and melancholy. And he never really deals with his depression. And this serves as a gateway to much more serious mental health issues. He goes through several psychotic episodes, ends up with some severely disturbing and very self-damaging behavior. Now, I hope you understand what I just said. I didn't say that if you are depressed, you're going to become psychotic. Or else there'd be a whole lot more psychotic people than there are in the world. But it's also true that depression is a serious issue, and it can lead to more serious problems, and that's why one way or the other you have to get to grips with depression. And there's several different ways to do that. As CF students, just so you know, you have access to a mental health program here at CF. It's called Baycare. There's an 800 number there. You can call that number, identify yourself as a CF student. Do you have depression or anxiety or some other issues that need to be addressed? CF has a program to connect you, at no charge to you, for the start of some moving towards reconciling some issues. So I'm a big fan of Baycare. I'm in favor of it. I carry cards for it in my wallet, so you see me across campus and you don't jot down this number anytime. Don't have to tell me what a problem is or anything. I've got the cards and we'll give them to you. I have suffered with depression off and on for my entire life, and well, you do have to get to grips with it, or else it can lead to more serious problems. So anyway, I just throw that out for you. Van Gogh, well, he, like I say, never deals with the depression. It just serves as a doorway to more serious problems, serious psychotic episodes, most of them characterized by severe paranoia. Most famously, in one psychotic episode, his girlfriend told him he had cute ears, so he cut the left one off and sent it to her so she could have it. This is kind of disturbing behavior, okay? This self-mutilation, self-damaging, really disturbing stuff, all right? Van Gogh painted several self-portraits of himself with a bandaged ear. I'm sometimes asked why, if Van Gogh sliced off his left ear, does he paint portraits of himself with a bandage on his right ear? Well, I'll let you figure that one out. But he's an interesting character, because when you see a Van Gogh painting, you see the world the way that Van Gogh sees it. Well, of course, that's true of any artist, but Van Gogh has a special way of seeing the world. On page 110, figure 1630, you have certainly Van Gogh's most famous individual painting, Starry Night. You're looking across the valley here. You see the hills on the opposing hillside. You see a village down here in the valley. If you look carefully, it's very similar to that village in Cézanne's painting. Cézanne and Van Gogh were friends and influenced each other quite a bit. The village looks an awful lot like the village in Cézanne's Mont Saint-Victor. Over here you see a cedar tree, and the moon in the sky, the stars in the sky, and almost like the wind blowing through the sky. It's about the only painting I can think of where the wind shows up and it's not hokey. It looks like it belongs. Those flashing lights, I call them, around the moon and the stars. Among Van Gogh's many problems, and now we're talking about a medical problem and not a psychological problem, is that Van Gogh suffered from severe migraine headaches. A lot of people who've suffered from migraine headaches look at Van Gogh's paintings and understand what he's doing with those flashing lights there, the visual distortions that oftentimes accompany migraine headaches, flashing lights, and those kinds of things. Not always, but sometimes, oftentimes, accompanying migraine headaches. Well, this doesn't help his paranoia, you see, because he really does see things that aren't there when he sees these distortions. He really does see them, and they really aren't there. This doesn't ease his paranoia any. Those stars in the sky may look like they're just thrown up there wherever Van Gogh wants them to be, but that's the constellation Aries in the sky when Van Gogh painted the painting. And in fact, you're looking at a scene that became very familiar to Van Gogh. You're looking out the window of a cell in a mental hospital where he was locked up for quite some time to keep himself from hurting himself. That's what I mean when I say that Van Gogh has an interesting way of seeing the world, and when you see a Van Gogh painting, you see the world the way that Van Gogh sees it. I've got some detail from the painting here to show you. The moon up there, and then an even closer look at the moon. You see the very thick brushstrokes that are characteristic of Van Gogh's work. The village, and I guess some not oranges, but fruit trees, nut trees, a grove there of some kind. On page 111, figure 1631, you have arguably Van Gogh's second most famous painting, Night Cafe. You notice the the odd colors, excuse me, the color distortions that are reported by many psychotic people as one of the symptoms of psychosis. You notice a weird balance to the room where you're looking over here in this part of the painting, you're looking down at the top of the chairs, but by the time you move your eye across the room, you're looking across the top of the table back here. There's like a warp to the room, another visual distortion oftentimes reported by psychotic people. Let me get rid of that stuff. There. Van Gogh writes to his brother Theo. He and his brother are very close. Spent a lifelong relationship detailed in letters to each other. He writes to his brother Theo about this painting that he's trying to create a room that if you sat in it long enough you'd go mad. He goes on to explain that he's trying to create a sense of how the world looks to him when he knows that he's right on the edge of one of these psychotic episodes, when he knows that things are going to get very difficult for him, yet he still has enough sanity to understand what's happening to him. I've got some other Van Gogh paintings here to show you that aren't in the textbook, but to show you this one here. I call it the Haunted Church. There's a fancier name for it in French. We actually have a very nice print of this painting hanging up outside my office down the hallway in Building 8. I'm not sure I like having this hanging up outside my office. That might explain an awful lot of my problems. This is the first thing I see when I get to work in the morning. I think I'm going to have to move it. Or this painting here, A Farmer in a Field, a painting with which Van Gogh cheerfully entitles Death. But one of the interesting things about Van Gogh is that sometimes he's okay. Sometimes the psychosis goes away. Sometimes even his melancholy kind of lifts. And when Van Gogh is doing okay, then he has a completely different style of painting. Here we have very bright flowers, the blue irises. Here, A Farmer in a Field. A very different take on A Farmer in a Field than, this farmer in a field. And you don't need to know an awful lot about clinical psychology or whatever just to see this is a very different mindset here, painting this farmer in a field than this farmer in a field. In your textbook, figure 1632 give you another painting by Van Gogh. One of Van Gogh's friends, one of his few friends. Paranoiacs tend not to have very many friends. It's at this man's house that, this man will take, he's a medical doctor. He'll take Van Gogh in and try to help him as much as Van Gogh's paranoia would allow him to be helped. It's at this man's house that Van Gogh senses that he's going to go into another psychotic episode. He just doesn't have the strength to face another one. He goes out into the garden, the doctor here, shoots himself in the chest, attempts to commit suicide, attempts to shoot himself through the heart. The bullet ricocheted off a rib, lodged in his spine. He comes back into the house, announcing that now he's failed as a suicide, develops an infection in the wound, and dies about a day and a half later. A very sad story to a very sad life, and yet, out of an awful lot of pain and trouble and sadness, he left behind an awful lot of beautiful things, and Van Gogh's an interesting life to look at, to read the letters that he writes to his brother, to see what is going on in his own life, and to track his life through these different paintings that he leaves for us.